Hello, and welcome to episode 10 of the Christian Life Coach podcast. I am Coach Shanna, and I am your Christian life coach. So, we are on episode 5 of what I imagine to be the first of many weight loss series. And we have talked about the mindset of weight loss and how to achieve sustainable weight loss and the place that mindset plays in that. We've talked about things to let go of in weight loss. Last week I talked about self-care as a weight loss protocol. And today I'm going to talk about what is actually a huge topic, and I'm going to barely touch the surface of it today. And that is intermittent fasting. Now, what is your first thought when you hear me say intermittent fasting? I would love to know that. So if you are listening or watching on a platform that allows for comments, I would love to see your comments about what your first thought is when you hear me say intermittent fasting. Or you can email me, hello@shannapizer.com. You can message me over on Instagram at the Christian Life Coach Podcast or at Coach Shanna P. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And here are mine. I heard people talk about intermittent fasting for years and years and years, and I was not interested at all. I have done some biblical fasting, like, when your church does a 21-day fast at the beginning of the year. I have fasted, I've done some fasting for specific situations to be in deeper prayer for situations here and there. But for weight loss, I was never really willing to go there to fast. It just sounded terrible to me. And then last year in 2024, in March of 2024, I picked up the book Why We Get Sick by Benjamin Bickman. And he talks in that book about insulin and insulin resistance, and how insulin resistance is the cause for almost every ailment that we deal with. Every disease has some element of insulin resistance. And it was just so fascinating to me. And learning about that. And then he goes on to talk about the remedy, the way to heal insulin resistance and to become insulin sensitive again is fasting, intermittent fasting. And he describes insulin resistance. And I am not a medical doctor. Disclaimer: I am not a medical doctor. I am not any kind of doctor. I do not play one on TV. Sometimes I pretend like I know enough to be a doctor, but I do not. So this is not medical advice. I am not a scientist. I am not a deep dive researcher. In general, I know just enough to get me in trouble. So this is my basic understanding of insulin resistance. And basically it's this: we consume a lot of sugar. We consume food on a consistent basis. Every time you eat, your body, glucose goes into your bloodstream. In order to get the glucose out of your bloodstream, your body signals to let insulin down, because insulin opens the gates of your cells to let the glucose into your cells for energy. What happens is we eat so often, we eat so much sugar that we need more and more insulin to open the gates to more and more cells to get all of that glucose stored into cells. And at some point, we need more and more insulin to open those gates. And that is where insulin resistance comes in. So then we just keep calling more and more insulin. Insulin is a storage hormone. And so it's storing the glucose in our cells, in our liver, in our muscles, and in our fat cells. And it's kind of like, I imagine it's like a drug addiction. You need more and more of the same drug to get the same result that you want. So it takes a little bit in the beginning. And as your body acclimates and gets used to it, it needs more and more of the substance to get that same experience, that same high or whatever it is. And that's insulin resistance. When we have to keep calling more and more insulin down to do the same amount of work. And that's why we get fat, because the insulin is coming down, it's storing. We're putting all of the glucose into storage, and we're not using it. And there's, like, you could go so deep into this. I'm barely scratching the surface. This is in the lamest of layman terms. So how intermittent fasting helps is you go periods of time without eating. Therefore, there is no glucose being put into the bloodstream. Therefore, there is no need to call insulin down to store the glucose, to clear out the glucose from the blood. So your body still needs energy. And so it goes searching for energy. It goes into the liver to get the stores of energy out of the liver. It goes into the muscles to get the stores of energy out of the muscles. And then it deep dives, it goes down into the deep freezer, and it starts grabbing energy from our fat cells. And that's when we become fat adapted. So that's how intermittent fasting helps us to go from being insulin resistance to insulin sensitive over time. So on repeat, going through periods of fasting helps your body to transition from using the energy in the glucose in our bloodstream to transitioning into going into the deep freezer and getting energy from the deep freezer. So that's how intermittent fasting helps. And when our bodies can go into the deep freezer to use that energy from the fat, then we're fat adapted and we're burning energy from our fat cells. So our fat cells are getting smaller. Fat cells never go away. They just get bigger and they get smaller. So when our body is using the energy from those fat cells, our fat cells are getting smaller, which means we're losing fat. We are losing body fat. And that is a great thing. So I read this book, Why We Get Sick, which then led me. His book was based on the Obesity Code by Jason Fung. So then I read that book and learned about all of the studies that have been done that dismiss a lot of the things that we've been taught. The low fat trend of the 80s, all the Snackwell cookies, that eating low fat is not the answer to sustainable weight loss. The calories in, calories out method. It lists the studies that debunk that theory and why. It explains it. I don't have time to go into all of that. There's a great book called The Obesity Code that talks all about it. So thinking through all of this, I'm like, okay, this all makes sense to me. And when you understand why something works and the mechanics and the processes behind it, it makes it much more interesting. And I'm like, maybe there's something to this intermittent fasting thing. And so I wanted to learn more. And so I started diving into books and podcasts and YouTube channels. And I started incorporating it. I read Why We Get Sick and the Obesity Code in March of last year. I started incorporating intermittent fasting into my life in April. And I have been on an intermittent fasting journey ever since. And it has been amazing and so interesting and challenging and rewarding and all of the things. So that's how I found myself becoming interested and open to intermittent fasting. And if this is something that you are interested in or curious about, I highly recommend reading Fast Like a Girl by Mindy Pelz. Here's all my intermittent fasting books and a devotional. Fast Like a Girl by Mindy Pelz. And also her YouTube channel is incredible. She has a podcast called The Resetters Podcast. All of her information is wonderful, and I'm continuously listening to her and reading her books. You can also, if you're interested in this, if you're interested in starting your own intermittent fasting journey, I coach on this. I help women to do this. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can always reach out and we can schedule a call and talk about how I can help you to start this journey, which is always any coaching that I do. I've said it before and I will continue to say it. My foundational principles are: start where you're at. You're not going to go from eating 12 meals a day to doing 48-hour fasts 3 times a week. I don't even know if that's mathematically possible. And I don't want to do 3 48-hour fasts a week. That's 2 days. That would be 8 days. So you can't even do it. Or 3 times 6 days. So start where you're at. And we'll kind of go into the different levels of intermittent fasting in this podcast, in this episode. So you're going to start where you're at. You're going to commit to doing what you're willing to do consistently and do it from a place of love. And that is opposed to white knuckling, doing it from a place of willpower, pushing through, powering through, restricting. We don't want to do any of that. We want to start where we're at. We want to meet ourselves where we are, and we want to take small, consistent, sustainable action and build on that. And we want to do it from a place of love and compassion and understanding and desire to be the person that God created us to be. So again, intermittent fasting. Fasting is when you don't eat. When you sleep at night, you're fasting. Between meals, you're fasting. There's fasting periods where you're not consuming food or any calories. And there are feasting windows. So you have a fasting window and a feasting window. And a feasting window is when it's okay to eat. When that is your period of time where you eat. And your fasting window is when you don't eat. So there are, in weight loss or in life, your diet is what you eat and when you eat. And so when I work with people, we work on both. And you can either start with what you eat and clean that up and work on developing better eating habits with what you're eating, or we can start with when you eat and not even touch the foods that you're eating, but just work on how often you eat and how long your fasting period is. And this is not about starving yourself. This is about healing yourself. There are so many benefits to intermittent fasting. It is healing through changing your body over from being insulin resistant to insulin sensitive. And that heals so many things within your body. And again, it's too much to even talk about. We become fat adapted, where we are learning, our body is learning to use energy from our fat cells instead of just having that easy, quick glucose in our bloodstream to use as energy. We go into metabolic switching when, same thing, you're becoming a fat burner instead of a sugar burner. You can have better mental clarity. Your body is cleaning up the inside of your cells. You sleep better. You reduce inflammation in your body. There's just so many things. And insulin is a hormone. And I believe it's the only hormone that impacts every single cell in your body. It has access to every single cell in your body. And so doing this intermittent fasting is a way to reset hormones. And again, I'm just going to keep saying this. This is barely scratching the surface. I could do research for an episode and it could be 6 hours long and still not explain everything. So there's so much. And I don't want to be a fire hose. I want to be a gentle garden hose that you can sip from. So I'm going to kind of go through the different levels of intermittent fasting. And this goes along with the start where you're at. If you are eating from the time you get up until the time you go to bed, and maybe even waking up in the middle of the night for a snack, maybe you want to start by fasting for 12 hours a day. So you would have a 12-hour window of period where you do not eat anything, and then a 12-hour period that is open for you to eat. Ideally, during that open window period, you're not overeating, but that's a whole nother discussion. So you're eating for 12 hours and you're fasting for 12 hours. And that does not mean that you're eating for 12 hours straight. That means that your window is open to eat if you're hungry, when it's time to eat, whatever. So in this level of fasting, you might wake up at 7 a.m., have breakfast, have lunch, have dinner, and then at 7 p.m., you stop eating for the night. So you go from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. without eating. And this is a great place to start if you're not already doing this. And it's an easy transition into intermittent fasting. It doesn't really disrupt your day. It doesn't you can, I mean, you can do 6 to 6, you can do 5 to 5, you can do 8 to 8, you could, whatever that looks like best for you. So there's not a lot of disruption to your day or your schedule, or you don't have to say no to having a meal with a friend or anything like that, because your eating window is pretty broad. And then there is the next level up would be the 16-8. So 16 hours of fasting with an 8-hour window for eating. And this could look like you get up and you don't eat anything until 11 a.m. Your feasting window is from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and you stop eating after 7 and you don't eat again until 11 the next day. So this is where you're pushing breakfast back a few hours, and which means you might have a little snack for breakfast, or you might have a regular sized breakfast and then maybe just have a little snack between breakfast and dinner. So it's adjusting things a little bit. And this is going to increase your body's ability to change over to that metabolic switching. It's going to give it time to need to go a little bit deeper for energy. It's not the glucose just in the bloodstream. It's going down into those deeper levels to get energy. Then from that, and again, this is start where you're at, do what you're willing to do consistently, do it from a place of love. And so now if you start at the 12, you do that for a while, you're like, okay, I've got this. I'm moving up to the 16-8. You do the 16-8 for a while. Okay, I've got this. And then you go to the 18-6, where you are fasting for 18 hours a day and your eating window is open for 6 hours. So this could be you eat from noon to 6 p.m. It could be you eat from 1 to 7 p.m. You could eat from 10 to 5, whatever that looks like for you, however it works best for you. And this is where your body is going to start. It goes into autophagy mode at 17 hours. And that's where your body is cleaning out the cells. And you can kind of think of it as your body is snacking on itself. Which is kind of gross, but also kind of awesome. There are a lot more benefits at this level, and also there's more adjustment to be done. And then you get into, there's 24-hour fast, 48-hour fast, 36, like whatever it is. After that, it's kind of the longer fast. And the longer you do a fast up until a certain point, the more benefits it has in your body. And at a 72-hour fast, I believe it is, you start resetting or creating new stem cells. And so there's healing benefits for different lengths of fast. And again, there's so much information. I'm barely scratching the surface. So the longer you do a fast, and if you do that once a week, once a month, whatever, you get those benefits. And one of the things that I love about intermittent fasting is that intermittent part. It doesn't mean you do the same thing every day, day in and day out. You want to switch things up. You want to kind of keep your body guessing. It's called hermetic stress. Your body gets used, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, your body gets used to that. And so one of the beautiful things about intermittent fasting is it's flexible, it's adjustable. If you go on vacation and you just, go whole hog on vacation, and then you come back and get right back into your intermittent fasting protocol, your body heals from that vacation. So you might initially see the water weight gain, the inflammation, but it's going to go away much faster when you get back into your intermittent fasting protocol. And maybe you do 12-hour fast a couple days a week. Maybe you're doing 16-8 a couple days a week. And maybe you're throwing in a 24-hour fast once a week. And maybe once a week, you don't fast at all. You just eat when you want, what you want. So it's very adaptable and adjustable. And the benefits don't go away because you fasted one day and not the next. You get to keep those benefits. So weight loss, inner healing, changing your body from the inside out, becoming insulin sensitive again, resetting your hormones, better sleep. There are so many benefits to intermittent fasting. I can't possibly list them all. And I started intermittent fasting in April of 24, and I would have to go back and look, but I don't think from January to April, I don't think that I lost very much weight. Maybe I lost 5 pounds, maybe. I'd have to go back and look. But when I got on the scale at the beginning of this year of 2025, I was like, what did I weigh at the beginning of last year? And I went back and I had lost 28 pounds in 2024. And I attribute most of that to intermittent fasting. And some people lose fast and crazy. And some people, it takes time and commitment. You have to be committed to the process and just know that this is healing my body from the inside out. I'm changing my body from the inside out. And so there is a level of commitment. This is not a quick and easy fix. This is a lasting and sustainable fix that takes effort and commitment and a willingness to go through some discomfort. I'm not going to lie. I get hungry. And there are all kinds of strategies to work through those kinds of things. I could do a whole 10-episode series on intermittent fasting, and who knows, maybe I will at some point. So that's kind of the very surface level brush of intermittent fasting and how it impacts your body and can be used as a weight loss protocol. I love this. I have incorporated this into my own life more and more and more. And as I learn more, I embrace it more because there's so much great research and science behind it. So I just want to encourage you, check it out. If you're curious, I highly recommend reading Why We Get Sick by Benjamin Bickman, The Obesity Code by Jason Fung, Everything by Mindy Pelz, P-E-L-Z, and her YouTube channel. And if you have questions, reach out. If you think that you might be interested in starting your own intermittent fasting journey or a weight loss journey of any kind, reach out, schedule a right fit call with me, and we can talk about how life coaching can help you to put weight loss protocols into place. And I'm happy to help. I'm here for it. Please, if you found this interesting, helpful, and you want more, please subscribe so that you get notified every time a new episode drops. Share with your friends who you think might be interested. Connect with me on the socials over on Instagram or Facebook. I'm at Coach Shanna P pretty much everywhere. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And subscribe, like, 5-star reviews are always welcome. I would love to hear from you, and have a great week. Thank you.